Good. Hello guys, my name is Marcos Leite and I am a sophomore. Most of you guys know me, actually. I know everyone in this room. I'm the sole proprietor of Flasher Fin's marketing and advertising. This is actually not how my logo looks like, but because of the quality of the projector, it's a little bit brighter on the screen, but it's just flashy enough that it catches your attention, but dark enough that you can easily see the lettering. But basically my idea is to create a on-campus marketing and advertising agency for a niche market just for clubs and organizations on campus. So I'll be explaining a little bit more of how I'm going to be fashioning my business. So I started observing a problem when I became a president of an on-campus organization. I realized there's a real disconnect between students and organizations. Many organizations, whether you're in a department or a student-led organization, you don't know how to get regular Nova Sharks to know that you're doing something, whether you have an event, whether you are having a movie night or something. There's no, people are always saying nothing's happening on campus, even though clubs very well are planning events. The communication isn't just going well. And I think one of the problems is because A, organizations lack the resources to create good content, or B, they don't have the knowledge on how to leverage university resources to promote their events. And then the next thing is, once they do learn how to use the university's different resources, they have difficulty in following their policies. Like for example, to print one poster and put it into UC, you have to first get it approved by Campus Life, which is one department. You then have to go to a second department, which is the Office of Poster Printing, and you have to get it and then get it approved by, say, Administrative Services Marketing, and you're going through 3 different departments to get one thing done. So I found this out myself. It was a very hair pulling out process, but I'm very glad that I went through because now I know the process like the back of my head. And as I was saying, it's an extensive bureaucratic process to utilize many of NSU's services. So what I'm going to do is provide a marketing and advertising service to all clubs and organizations specifically. I don't want to get into departments. I just want to focus on clubs and organizations, and I have a model that's going to work very nicely just for them. I can publish promotions across, one half of my business is just publishing their promotions across campus, and the second part of my business is creating materials for them, such as flyers, graphics, posters, t-shirts, physical materials, or printed materials. So either they give me their content and I spread it, or I create content for them and I spread it, or I can create actual physical items for them. So this is what my operation is going to be like. I'm going to be in the UC spine because that has some of the most traffic. I'm going to be there. I strategically place my businesses on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Fridays when there's the most traffic in UC, which is from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. because those are the times I'm going to be making myself known, making connections. I'm going to have a table in UC, so I'm actually going to have a screen that's going to have slides of different work that I've done, different examples of materials I've created, and I'm actually going to have actual materials on my table that people can see, and it will be tangible. They can see for themselves what my business can offer. So Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays are more of the interactive days. What's nice about Mondays and Thursdays, which is from 2 to 4 p.m., that's where there's less traffic, so that gives me more time to work on projects that someone has contracted me to do. So there will be less students walking around, so I'll be able to make their designs, make their flyers, and things like that. So I have some examples of work I've already created for different organizations. I made this recently, and you will soon be seeing this design on the electronic marquee on University Drive, on 8 Fischler Avenue, and on College Avenue. There's 3 electronic marquees, and so this one is going to be going on there. So that's an example of something I can do for an organization. I can create something for them and then put it somewhere big like that. And you don't see student organizations utilizing those services because, quite frankly, A, they don't know they exist, B, they don't know how to do it. It's, not many people know about this. I didn't know about this until, I started digging in for myself. This is something that I've created for my job now as a marketing representative for Shark Dining. So I've been acquiring a lot of skills as a marketing intern for them. This is an example of how I created something and put it on a platform that exists on campus. This is one of the screens outside the Razor's Reef. So that's something that I can do for another organization. I can put their content on those sort of screens inside the actual cafeteria, or different places on campus, and I am now well versed on what places are actually available to show content. So I conducted a study. My sample size was roughly 1/10, 1/11 of the student organizations on campus. So I took, my sample is comprised of 1/10 of the most active organizations on campus. And one of the first questions I asked them is, how often does their organization have events that are geared towards attracting new people or recruitment? And so 100% of these organizations, well, it makes sense because they're some of the biggest ones, have events designed to attract newcomers, and 80% of the organizations have such events frequently, and frequently is 3 to 4 times a semester or 5 times a semester, and these are all the sort of events that you need promotions for. So like I said, this is based on a study of 1/10 of the most active organizations on campus. And so next I asked, have you ever felt as if your organization has had trouble raising awareness of your events within the student body? And 100% has said yes. And I can vouch on that behalf too. As a president, I've also found a lot of trouble letting people know that I have events going on. Next, 80% of my respondents are open-minded to paying for marketing services. And this is what my business method would look like. As I said, I'd be tabling in the UC, so I'd be doing this daily, and so clients would visit me during my consultation hours there, and so I will have a service request form that I will personally do with them. This is what's different about me versus administrative services marketing. Sure, you can use their form, but it's a 5-page form, it's very confusing, and has every single platform available to you to utilize on that form, and no one's there to guide you through it. So I will personally sit down with a client and talk to them and brainstorm with them, give them that personal touch of how they can create a service form with me, and then once we decide what kind of services they need, I'll create an invoice from the client, and so then I, the business representative, will borrow from my $5,000 loan to pay for the service that I'm providing for them. And then the client then takes the invoice that I've given them and takes it to the inter-organizational council and requests reimbursement. So to give you a little bit of background for what it takes for an organization to pay for something, all organizations have funding, all of them. So if you are a blue level status organization, which is the minimum status, you get $300 worth of funding. If you're my organization's gold level status, which is the highest status, and they get up to $3,200 worth of funding. So every time, and it's not just direct, you need to create an itemized budget every single time you request for funds. So one other convenient way to get funds is if you have an invoice of something and then submit it to the Office of Student Accounts for reimbursement. So I would provide that invoice for the student organization to take, and then they request reimbursement from the student accounts, and then that goes back to me. So the client then either receives notification of the completion of the requested service, whether that's me putting it on social media, me putting it on a screen, or if it's an actual physical material, then they will receive notification that's ready and they can pick it up and receive from me. So I have two main obstacles when it comes to this business. One is some organizations just want to do things themselves. They may not want to pay me. They may have, say, an e-board member who handles marketing. So they can just, quite frankly, not choose to use my services. Or B, maybe these some student organizations just have insufficient balance within their accounts. For example, one time my organization became ineligible for funding because we didn't have enough service hours. That's something that can happen. But with the vast amount of student organizations that there are on campus, I don't think that we'll have that problem, especially since we currently already have, my future business already has a client. So we will definitely have at least some business. And one last thing that I don't have on there that I've considered is, you know, there's always the possibility that the inter-organizational council may give some fuss about me running my business, and they say not like the idea that I'm using services that the university provides and, you know, leverage it as a business, and may restrict the budget to not be used for those purposes, but as of right now, that's not a rule, so I am currently not under that obstacle. But it's something I have considered. So next, my value proposition. I'm going to be in a very convenient location. I'm a very social person. I've tabled in the UC before on behalf of my organization. I'm used to what that looks like. I'm very good at, I would be totally fine at evangelizing my own business. That wouldn't be an issue for me. I would be talking to people and there would be a lot of traffic there. The second part of my value proposition is that it eliminates a lot of tedious university processes. So, for example, instead of you having to fill out a really annoying, difficult form, you just visit me and we work through a form together that I've created. So that makes my service very straightforward and easy to utilize, and it's a very simple payment method. I give you an invoice, you drop that invoice off. Well, technically, it depends. They could either drop it off at the Office of Student Accounts or they can incorporate it into their already existing budget. So it would be one of those two things, but it would be laid out very nicely for them to use. Next, my inventory. So one of the things I see, if you look at the bottom for my disclaimer, I won't be carrying supplies often for other people. The only time I'll be carrying my client supplies is when I've actually ordered them. You know, there's a service that's been requested, because they will only be purchased on a per demand basis. I'm not just going to have t-shirts lying around in UC. If you want a t-shirt, I'll fill out that order and make the necessary purchases to get you t-shirts. But I'm not just carrying around t-shirts. You know, so that's kind of what I'm saying. So first, I'll have a pop-out stand with a business poster promoting myself, promoting, you know, what services I have. I'll be providing my own little screen, kind of like a desktop screen, so that's not included in my inventory purchases since I already have a small screen that'll have a slideshow of what I do. I'll buy my own t-shirts for Flasher Fins marketing. I'll have my own hats to, you know, brand myself. I'll have a folding table unless the university can provide me with a table, which they very well might. It depends, but I'm prepared otherwise. I will have decorations for my table to make it nice and presentable, and that will bring me to a total of $230 based on rough estimations. So this is my balance sheet. I will be requesting $1,000 from the university for my loan, and that's how I want to start off my business, and I'll be using that $1,000 to cover the $230 I mentioned previously that comprises my hats, my t-shirts, and my decorations. So after I use the $230 of inventory, I would still have $770 left to make some initial services and deals with clients that I have in UC during my first couple of weeks of operation. And we'll just see how it goes. There may be you know, requests that I get where I need more than $1,000, but as of right now, what I'm foreseeing is I'm only going to need $1,000 at the first opening day. So, for my cost-benefit analysis, one of the things that I think is in my favor is I don't have bulky overhead. I think a large bulk of what my service will be is all digital, all via my computer, all person-to-person contact. So I don't need to carry around a lot of supplies, carry around a lot of inventory. So the most cost that I'll incur is from physical items, but those kind of physical items are less frequently needed by organizations, and it's kind of predictable when they may need it. I already know that the most busy times would be times like Sharkapalooza or Community Fest. Those are predictable times that reoccur, and I can prepare ahead of time for that. And although certain things like, say, an organization decides to get t-shirts, that isn't as predictable, but that's still few and far between, so I'll have enough time to adjust for that, talk to Anthony, Campenny, and other people and work with readjusting how much money I borrow from the school to make those sort of purchases. So for my repayment and exiting, I will repay my loan as soon as my net income surpasses my net loss. So for example, a lot of the, like I said, a lot of the services I'm going to provide isn't any overhead or cost to me. So I think there'll be times I'm making pure profit, so it'll be easy for me to repay some of those loans. The only time where, I will be taking loss is when I am, making a big purchase. If I'm buying bracelets, if I'm buying stickers, like I do have to borrow, and some of the costs I borrow from the university will be just paying for the order itself. So as soon as my net income surpasses my net loss, I'll be able to repay. So after my first year running my business, I will either continue operating a similar version of it, or I'll mentor another student to take on my business, so I won't have to completely shut it down. I'm open to either option, but as you know, I am a marketing major, so I am not close to the idea of continuing running a similar version of my business if the university permits. So this is just a little bit about me. I will be this is the employees of Flasher Fins Marketing, just Marcos Leite. I am a marketing major with experience running a gold level status industry organization, running marketing affairs for Shark Dining. I've experience doing event planning where I've planned, just within the last semester alone, 3 events with over 500 students in attendance, and I always find ways of getting things done at NSU. Thank you.
So you mentioned that you are going to be the one predominantly, I guess, designing the items, whatever they are, and you already have, I'm assuming, an existing sort of sourcing for having those items produced?
Yeah, I usually go through just some different avenues I go through is Baron Marketing, Suncoast Marketing, or there's actually a new distributor I've been working with for our organization, Fresh Prince Marketing. Not Prince like the TV show, Fresh Prince. And they will be making our t-shirts. So I play around. I may use different outlets depending on the pricing, but yeah.
So how does like something more mainstream like Vistaprint stack up, or do you have any idea?
Vistaprint?
Yeah.
So are you saying just like if...
Because like Vistaprint, apparently from what I've seen, because I was recently looking, they will produce virtually anything.
Yeah.
And print it on almost any medium, and just in terms of just wondering what their pricing relative to some of these other services that you've been using, whether or not that might be even a consolidated place or not.
Well, to be completely transparent with you, I'm still in a process where I'm investigating my options to go with the cheapest provider, and it's actually funny you're mentioning that to me because Mason's actually part of my organization, and the decision to work with Fresh Prints because of their cheaper price just happened very recently, super recently, just 2 days ago or a day ago, right? So we're always open to working with new distributors. Really, what's the cheapest option for us to use?
I think I had written down something before, but I think you kind of came around to it maybe. I wanted to know if you were planning to borrow anything originally from the $5,000 loan, because when you first started out, I couldn't tell if you were going to borrow, and then it looks like you're going to borrow $1,000.
Yes,
one of the things that I think you might talk to Nicholas Bloom about is if you're going to be working with student organizations and you have your student business account set up, there might be able to be an internal transfer of funds so that you wouldn't even have to handle any of that part of it.
These are the sort of things that make me smile when I walk back to my room. You would have no clue how much headaches I've had in just conceptualizing how the payment process would work. Mrs. Babcock, the only thing I fear is I'm telling you, they love to nitpick. They may call it a conflict of interest, especially since I'm the president of a student organization. So I'm just trying to tread lightly.
The IOC may, or who's?
With IOC, yeah. Okay. So they created that organization just to be a liaison between organizations and people. So I will see what happens. If that works in my interest, that's one less headache I have. So that
how is Gabriel's business? Is is he having run into those issues, or have you talked to him at all?
I have no clue. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was just wondering because I knew that that his whole business was centered around.
Similar,
Well, it was primarily, I guess, just doing just the paperwork aspect of it, not any of the design or marketing. But I was just kind of wondering if he'd run into any issues or problems with regard to.
And I've talked to Nick because Nick may be able to do some of that stuff behind the scenes. So I'd get over there and talk to him.
I've talked to him. You were there when I talked to him. I was trying to pick his brains because it is such an involved process, but if they're able to cut it, I should just sit down with both him and Anthony and
Yeah.
maybe an IOC representative and see what kind of deal we can cut
Yeah.
out, because if that's possible, that would be fantastic.
I would, and
That would
I'd have the big
literally-
gun, I'd have those big guns there
Thank you.
with,
But you would have no clue, like Mason can tell you, just some of the headaches we've had with these organizations with budgeting. It's just wild
Yeah.
how many rules they have. So yeah.
Oh, so mine would mainly be suggestions or things to kind of think about. My first thing would be promoting directly through Shark Hub, like going through Harlena. She's the one who's over all of the
Yeah.
student organizations, so going directly through her, or maybe presenting at some of those leadership conferences where the president.
Yes. I'm
And,
so glad you mentioned that, because I forgot to mention it.
Yeah, that would be a big thing for you. And then you were stating that you're going to have all of your meetings in the middle of the UC Spine.
I actually love that. I
But wouldn't
love
that be
it.
kind of hectic, like you said, during peak hours, and you're very social, as you stated.
Yep.
So, like, people coming in during your meetings might be something that you should think about.
Well, so that's why I created two different, very different slots. One,
Okay.
so one of the biggest reasons why I want to be in those peak hours is for the sake of exposure.
Okay.
You know, people will know I exist if they see me.
Mhm.
And then I have 3 other times where it's very low traffic.
Gotcha.
So I do want to be seen, but I also do want to work. So I think I created a good balance. And to touch on what you said with leadership retreats, so there are leadership summits that are absolutely required for presidents and treasurers to attend.
Mhm.
And I want to work with Gerard Wheeler, who's the director of campus life, and Vanessa Franco, who's one of the assistant directors, to see if I can either, we'll both speak and be featured in a portion of that mandatory meeting, so I can, present my services to the whole organization body. So if they give me the green light on that, that'd be awesome.
And then also, have you spoken to student affairs marketing at all, just to
Yes.
build that relationship more?
Mason and I actually met up with them. Mason, when did we meet with them? Last week?
Yeah, no, 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, and they're part of the reason why we, have, I already closed it, but I have that flyer that's going to go onto electronic marquees. We already worked out with them all of the rules with that, and all the
Okay.
formatting, so you're actually going to be seeing it soon as you drive by on
Okay.
that screen.
Those are all mine.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mason, would you mind giving yours next week?